Hi everyone, let me know if you can hear us. So we have Isabella, Joycia, Beatriz. If someone can put in the chat, yes, I can hear you, that will be great. Thank you for being here today. Today we have a master class with one of our PM instructor, Anita. She's a program management manager now in Global, and she have also a lot of experience in product. She is one of our favorite teachers. We are all women, yeah, an academy for women and by women. We have course of product management. Thank you, Beatriz. Of product management, data science, UX, UI design, content design and use writing, in web development. So we try to do this type of masterclass so you can hear more about this type of topic, and also we need more women in tech. So this is a window, no, to start to hear. We have been thinking with Anita that this can be like a good topic, like how they make a lot of decisions during the day, and which is the process that they use, the product manager. So this event will be recorded in case you want to see it later also. And Anita, I think also if you can share your LinkedIn's to do some networking, that will be great. So Anita, thank you for being here first.
Yeah, Ines, thank you. Hi everyone. Good evening, I think it is already, now it's 6 p.m. Or I don't know, are we actually a very international group? Where is everybody joining from? Maybe if you want, you can share that in the chat. Maybe it's not evening where you are, but I suppose it is. Yeah, as Ines said, I am one of the instructors at allWomen. I'm teaching, or I am among the teachers of the product management course. We are at the moment 5 teachers, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, okay, Ines is nodding. Oh, hey, there's somebody from Argentina. But now in Barcelona, so it's evening where you are as well, I suppose. Oh no, wait, that's you writing, Ines, no?
I don't want to to break your heart, but Beatriz and I will spell name Marta, Isabella, Natasha. If you can share with us where are you from, that will be great.
Yeah, it would just be interesting for me. Oh, hey, cool. There's somebody from Malaga. Hi, Beatriz. So if nobody else is joining, Beatriz, it will be like a class. I'm just teaching you. So if nobody else is joining the chat, so I hope you feel happy about that. Anyways, so today I wanted to talk about how, as a product manager, we're making tough decisions. Oh, hey, hi from Berlin. Hi, Gosia. Because as product managers, we have to make a lot of decisions throughout our day. Probably that's the most important job that we have. We have to take decisions for the rest of the company. And that can be quite a difficult topic. I think this quote from Steve Jobs describes the job of a product manager pretty well. He says, people think focus means saying yes to the thing you've got to focus on, but that's not what it means at all. It means saying no to the 100 other good ideas. Because we as product managers, we in the end have to decide, okay, what should we as a product team in the company or as a technical team focus on? What should we work on? And what should we build? What kinds of functionalities we should build? I'm just seeing that in the chat. Hey, it's great that some other people.
You can say something in Germany. Anita, because you are from
yeah, everybody's joining from Berlin. I'm from Berlin, by the way. That's where I was born. I'm German. So great to see everybody. Exactly. But so we have to take a lot of decisions, but that can be really hard because for sure, there can be wrong decisions, right? Not every decision we have to make. I mean, let's just say this: decisions are hard. So I wanted to ask you, hey, from Taiwan. I wanted to ask you, which of these two statements do you agree with more about decisions? Decisions are not reversible, and you have to be very careful making them. That would be version A. Or decisions are like walking through a door. If you don't like the decision, you can always go back. Which one do you agree with more? Just put in A or B. And if you want, I mean, let me know also why you agree with that one. Just put that in the chat if you like. Depending, yeah. So I'm just looking at the chat in case somebody writes something. I have to say that it's a little bit of a mean question for sure, but B most times, yeah, you can always go back. Yeah, neither. B if you have to choose. Nice. So, okay. Yeah, used to agree with A, but not trying to be B. Same, B if I have to choose. Okay, so thank you for answering. But I guess you can be having to walk through different types of doors. Yeah, that's very true. Exactly. So you're all quite right. It's hard to choose between these two because in the end, they're both types of decisions, right? So I mean, it's a little bit of a trick question that I gave you. According to Amazon, Amazon wrote this in their newsletter or shareholder letter or somewhere where they publish information. And they wrote type A decisions are the ones that are not reversible, and type 2 decisions are like walking through a door and you can always go back, right? So in order to understand how important a decision is that you have to take, you want to figure out, is this a type A decision or a type 1 decision, or is it a type 2 decision? And in order to be able to decide that, you can, for example, use this framework, right? You want to take a look at the resources that you have invested, and you want to see, okay, if I do this resource investment, so if I've taken this decision, so we invest these resources, is that easy to undo or is that hard to undo? The overall impact of the positive outcome, easy to undo, hard to undo, or in the overall impact of the negative outcome, easy to undo or hard to undo. So I would like to do a quick exercise with you. For this example, adding an extra question to your sign-up form, right? I am a digital product manager. For me, everything is about software. So imagine you have your sign-up form where people are signing up to your app or to your newsletter or something like that. And you want to add an extra question because you want to get extra information that you didn't have from your previous users. Do you think the resource investment is easy to undo or hard to undo? The overall impact of the positive outcome is easy or hard to undo? And the negative outcome, easy or hard to undo? What do you think? I will give you a little bit of time to think about that. Please also just write in the chat what you think. So I'll give you 2 minutes. I usually like to do my classes in a very interactive form. It's a little bit more awkward here in this chat situation where you can't actually talk to me.
Because you don't see the faces.
Yeah, I don't even know if anybody is thinking about this right now.
Is someone
Or
preparing something?
yeah, exactly. Is everybody just ignoring you? But in class,
Marta
oh, the
is
first one to
answering.
answer. Thanks, Marta. All criteria sound easy to undo for this example. Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for your opinion. I mean, yeah, okay. I don't want to say if I agree yet, because I would like to see what others are thinking.
Isabel is
Easy to
saying
undo,
easy
just
to
reverse
handle.
the change. Mm-hmm. Nice. So I agree with you. This one is a pretty, I mean, it's a very low investment, right? To just add a question to your sign up form. It's very low tech effort. The positive outcome that you have is probably a little bit of extra information, which you can erase again if you for some reason don't need that. I guess the only thing that might be difficult to undo here, if people don't sign up, you can't undo it. Exactly. Yeah, very good point. That's actually the second thing that might be hard to undo here. So if you add an extra question to your sign up form, it's very likely that you will reduce the conversion rate of that sign up form. That's just a fact. The more questions you ask from your users, the less people will actually fill in the whole form. For any form, that's just a fact. So all of the people that for some reason decided, oh no, they want to know too much information, I don't want to sign up, you won't be able to retarget them. Or I mean, it will be hard to retarget them, right? So they are lost causes in a way. And then the second thing that could also potentially be difficult here, but this depends on the question that you want to add to your sign up form, is you might have to justify this for privacy. So there might be data privacy issues with the question that you've added and with the additional information that you've now stored about your customers. But this will only be problematic if you're asking a question that is problematic according to GDPR. A second question on the same exercise, how about changing the logo of your company? What do you think about that one? In general, easy to undo or hard to undo, and why? Very hard, you're saying, Ines? Mm-hmm.
I used to work in a company that do that in the past. A big firm, hard to understand.
Mm-hmm. Hard in terms of resources. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. It's quite the big investment, and it's quite costly because you're not just changing the logo of your website. I mean, changing the logo of your website, that involves getting a designer, making a new logo for you, and putting it up there. That's like not a big thing. But there's all of these physical things all around your company, like merchandise, just like your headquarters, maybe the logo is like big there, all of your advertisements and so on. So changing the logo of your company is quite the big investment, I agree. And quite the big investment that is very hard to undo. Marta is saying hard to undo. People will need time to associate the new image to the company, let alone reverse it. Exactly. Yes. Very good point. So even if, I mean, no matter whether it will be a positive or a negative outcome, whether people kind of like the new logo, whether they think, this is more modern, this is more fitting, more fresh or anything, if you for some reason want to undo this again, like it was already hard for people to remember that this is still you as a company. And now if you want to undo this again, well, maybe it will be easier again for people to remember because it's still fresher in their mind. the old logo. But yeah, I agree. So this is probably on most of these scales pretty hard to undo. Of course, this is not a binary choice, right? If you have to rate several decisions between or against one another, you would have to say, okay, this is on a scale of easy to undo and hard to undo somewhere in the middle. This is somewhere further left, and so on, so that you can kind of score decisions against one another. And here are 3 facts about the importance of decisions. So the less important a decision, the less information you should try to seek to make it. But the reverse is also true, of course. The more important a decision is, the more time you should take in making that decision, first of all, and the more information and the more data and the more information and data you should seek, and the more people you should ask about this decision. Number 2, gathering information follows the Pareto principle, meaning you can get 80% of the information quite easily, but getting the final 20% requires a lot of effort. So Pareto principle, I suppose all of you know that. This is basically the rule of perfection, right? Perfection is hard. Perfection is sometimes impossible. The first 80% of the information that you can gather should be enough. The last 20%, you should only tackle if this is a really, really important decision. And most decisions are not important. Number 3, most decisions that you have to take, even as a product manager, there are a lot of decisions that you take every day, all day long, that are not so important. So you should just take them and don't worry too much about them. Worry about the important decisions, like changing your company logo. But of course, this depends on the scope that you're working on as a product manager, the scope of your product. There can be, like on the bigger scale of the company, this decision might be not very important, but on your scale as a product manager, that's a very important decision. So all of this is relative, because your scope as a product manager is not the whole company most of the time. So this is a tech team, right? I'm labeling this to be a tech team. And the person there on the whiteboard pointing at the coffee, at the coffee cup, let's say this is the product manager. The product manager's role in this tech team is always to make this decision, right? So now what do we do? As a team, what is the next feature we should build? What is the next thing we should focus on? What is the one thing that we should focus on and that will improve everything, will make everything better, the world a better place? And in order to understand how we as product managers take that decision, I want to explain sort of what the goal is that companies have, because in the end, we want to make a good job for the company, and we're playing a part, or we're playing a role in capturing value for the company. So a company wants to provide value to a customer in order to capture value from the customer. So capturing value from the customer, that's quite easy. Capturing value in this case means making money with the customer, right? That's the ultimate goal of every company. They want to earn money, they want to earn revenue, they want to save costs, maybe also, could also be a goal, but in the end, it's all about money. That's why we're companies and not NGOs. But what does it mean to provide value to the customer? So, I mean, what's this word, value? Because without providing value to the customer, we can't make the customer pay for anything, right? They want to pay for something. They want to receive something for their money. So what do you think could this value, what could be the definition of value here in this scenario? Again, just type your answer in the chat, of course. And I will have a sip of water in the meantime. And maybe you just want to think about certain products that you've bought yourself. Why are they valuable to you? What is something that you think is a good definition of value, or just an example of value for yourself? A service or a product that you need. Something that the person wants or finds useful. Yeah, definitely, very good point. For example, a service or a physical item that answers to a need of the customer. Yeah, so you're all going in the same direction, actually, and this need or this answering of a need is exactly the definition that we have in product management. Customers buy products because of the need that they fulfill and the problems that they solve. Jeff Lash, very important, very interesting product manager. If you're interested in product management, you can take a look into him. This presentation is full of quotes from random people. I mean, they're not random, they're all sort of related to product management. But yeah, wait, there's a new one or several new ones. Here, value proposition solves a problem. Value could be a benefit I could receive and fulfills a need or solves a problem. Exactly. So you've exactly touched the point of Jeff Lash as well. Saving time. Yeah, very good point as well. So this is the now I've lost the name of the guy that created this pyramid of needs. Maybe if one of you happens to know, you can just write it in the chat. I'm having a blackout here. So anyways, this is a pyramid of needs created by a psychologist whose name is something like Maslow. Is Maslow his name? Well, I'll figure it out later. Basically, the idea behind this pyramid is that, first of all, people need to fulfill their physiological needs, right? They need to have air, they need to have water, they need to have food, shelter, sleep, clothing. Reproductional needs are also within this category. Maslow. Okay. Yes. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. Okay. I remembered the right name. Before those needs are not fulfilled, no other needs can really be thought of, right? But living nowadays in most countries in the world, fortunately, or most of you, I assume, have probably fulfilled your physiological needs fairly easily, and you can go on to the next step on this pyramid, which is your safety needs: personal security, employment, resources, health, property, and so on. Once you've fulfilled those, you can probably start looking into friendship, intimacy, family, sense of connection, and so on. So this is the idea behind this pyramid. And we like to use this pyramid also in product management because it kind of describes, or it's a list of needs that we could potentially fulfill for customers, right? It's a list of things that customers will pay for in the end, or that customers need, and that could potentially solve, or that could be potential problems that we could solve for our customers. The idea is also that the higher up in this pyramid our solution is, right, or the higher up in this pyramid the solution that we offer solves the problem for, the less people will probably need our solution, but also the less competitors will already be out there. The less products will already exist within this area of solution space. Also, the higher up in this pyramid you are, the more likely or the easier it is to retain your customers. One thing, because there are less competitors, but also because you're at the very top, right? You're helping your customers to self-actualize. this is something that they will pay a lot of money for, and they will be very happy to receive help in, if you're actually doing your job well. For anything, for like the lower you go in this pyramid, the less money people are, well, it depends, because if you're helping people to fulfill their physiological needs and they don't have any other way to fulfill their physiological needs, they will also pay a lot of money for that, of course. But it's very likely that there are already solutions out there for all of these things. Therefore, the potential market space could be huge. Like, there are a lot of people with this need, but because there are already so many solutions out there, your final market space is probably fairly small. So yeah, that's just kind of a little bit of theory around need and around like where you might want to establish your product in. And the higher the need, basically, the higher the retention can be, but the less, the more personalized also your product might have to be, and therefore the less target customers you might also have in the end. So, okay, wait, I wanted to say one sentence. I mean, this is all really nice, right? You can just ask your customers, okay, what do you need? What is it that you need? Because in product management, normally, I mean, it depends, right? You can be the product manager of a startup and you're still just kind of figuring out where your product should be, what your product should be, and so on. But normally in product management, we work in a bigger company. There might even be several product managers kind of working on the same product, and you have your own little space within the product. You're not really figuring out your whole product. You're just figuring out one part of the product. Kind of you on the level of, you want to know what color this certain button should have, right? That's probably the smallest space of decision making that you might have to take, but it's more on that rather than defining the whole product. So, okay, let's just ask our customers, what do they want? But the problem is, as another quote by Steve Jobs, as Steve Jobs apparently also said, you can't just ask customers what they want and then try to give that to them, because by the time that you get to build it, they'll want something new. And also, it's really hard. I mean, think about yourself. Do you know what you want? I mean, you might have an idea of what you want, but really the best solution that you can think yourself for the problem that you might have might not be the very best solution for your problem, right? It's just your idea. It's kind of the first thing that you thought of, the best solution that you can think of, and therefore you say, okay, this is what I want. But it's not, I mean, it might be one solution to your need, one solution to your problem, but it might not be the solution to your problem, and it might not be the solution to everybody else who has the same problem. So it's not always that useful to just ask your customers, what do you want? You need to figure out, what do they actually need? Another problem we have is that companies tend to overestimate the value that they're providing and tend to underestimate the cost for themselves, but also especially the cost for the customer, right? So they think, wow, we have a great solution. A lot of people will give us a lot of money for this. We'll pay a lot of money for this. But users tend to overestimate the cost of a solution while underestimating the value that it actually provides to them. So before they ever pay for the solution and before they ever try it out, they think, yeah, I don't know, this is really expensive. Nah, right? That's the idea behind this. Because without actually trying what value it brings to them, they might just underestimate the value. So what Teresa Torres, actually, I think she's American, so it's probably Teresa Torres, said is that if we want to identify successful solutions, we need to start by building empathy for the people who will use or be impacted by our solutions, so our users and our customers. We need to understand their needs, their pain points, their desires, wants, goals, and motivations. So we need to basically put ourselves into the shoes of the customer. We need to empathize with them rather than just asking them what they want. So how do we build, or how does one build empathy for one's customers? What do you think? What are maybe techniques or processes, solutions, whatever ideas that you might have? How would you build more empathy for your customers and really understand what they need? Another time for me to take a sip of water. Oh, wait, sorry.
I have an answer. User interviews.
Yeah, okay, that's one option. I'm sure there are more options though. Yeah, this was a really bad mistake because, of course, user interviews is kind of the easiest answer to this question, but there are a lot more answers. I've been talking a lot now. People have to get used to being interactive again.
I can mention some of them. I really like the name dropping. Marianela, we will wait for your answer. Lourdes, Resi.
Oh, wait, answers are coming in.
Okay.
Great. I was thinking of putting yourself in their shoes. What I think could be the same as the 5 W's. The 5 W's, I'm not sure if you mean the 5 Y's or the 5 W's as in what, when, where. Well, probably you mean that. Okay, that makes sense. Try to experience their journey. Example, you try to fill in the survey yourself. If we're going to the earlier example. Yeah, nice, interesting idea. Speaking with them regularly, meet and observe them in their own environment. Yeah, very good. Observe them. Use the product yourself. Yeah, definitely. Very good ideas. Nice. So I'm going to start showing a little bit my ideas, but if you have more ideas, feel free to continue dropping them in the chat. So as Ines already said, I don't know how you got that idea. User interviews is one option, and as some of you also said, for example, using the 5 Whys technique, right? So when you're doing a user interview, you always want to ask, okay, why do you think that's useful? Why do you think you want that? Why do you think you need that? Why do you think, or why do you do it that way? Why is that a problem for you? Ask them as many whys as possible in order to actually understand the reason behind the reason behind the reason behind the reason, so that you really get to the bottom of this. There are a couple more answers. Or no, one more answer. Provide customer service that really works and solve my problem, and not to only see a happy face. Okay, yeah, very good idea. Also, if you have a good customer service, it will also be really useful for you as a product manager, or for me as a product manager, to actually talk to my customer support people, to my customer service, and understand, okay, what problems are people coming to you with, right? What are problems that people are having? Because not every product manager necessarily talks to customer support and really understands that. And customer support doesn't always have the culture to provide the rest of the company with feedback of what customers are giving them, are letting them know. So yeah, very good point as well, to talk to customer service. Assume a beginner's mindset, and I think at least Isabella touched on that, to like use the product yourself, but put yourself into your customer's shoes, right? Don't use the product as the person that you are. knowing all of the things that you know. And this is really hard, actually. Assuming a beginner's mindset is very, very hard to switch your mind to that. And this one might actually also be a very problematic option for you to build empathy for your customers, because you are not a beginner. You know a lot about this product, and you might be very biased with the things that you come up with, but it's still useful to have as an additional resource, as an additional process to use. User studies, and one of you also mentioned like observing your users. Exactly, observing them use your product. Seeing them without giving them a lot of input, without explaining to them how things are supposed to work, just seeing them figure things out, right? And struggle with your product, because they're going to struggle with your product. And unfortunately, there hasn't been yet a product that was so easy to use that everybody just understands it right away. I don't think I've seen anything like that. Not even an alarm or a timer. People will always struggle with something. Body storming. This is also kind of putting yourself into your customer's shoes, right? You put yourself into the situation, and when you're in like the situation, and you role play it, and you come up with ideas while you're role playing the problem that your customers might have, and so on. Customer or user journey maps. This is a technique to draw. It could be a diagram, or it could be like a cartoon kind of thing, or maybe screenshots or photos of your user within their day-to-day using your product, and also the moments of before using your product and the moments after using your product. And with first of all, by creating this journey map, you're creating a lot of empathy for your customer, but also this is a very good way of communicating your customers' needs and your customers, like communicating empathy for your customers. Engaging with extreme users could be a very interesting idea. The people that either are on, like, they could be on the one extreme where they only use your product like once a year on this very special day where they remember, I had this app, or I had this service, or whatever. Let's use it because this is the day for me to use it. Or they could be on this extreme of like checking your notifications, like being sort of the super user. The extreme user, basically, we also call them extreme user, but the minimal user can also be an extreme user. Of just like using your product all the time, every 10 minutes, every day, throughout the whole day. And do I have another one? Oh yeah, user journals. This is also similar to observing your users. Also kind of, you could create a user journey map out of user journals, right? With user journals, you're asking your users, your customers, to write down their day, write down their interaction with your product, but not necessarily just their interaction with your product. They could also, like, if you're still in this like solution finding space where you're still figuring out what your product in general should be doing, it's a great resource to have user journals where they write down all the things that they're experiencing with the problem and with the need that they have. And it's, of course, this one is a very, so there are more qualitative data techniques, and they're more quantitative data techniques. The user journal is the super, like the extreme of the qualitative data technique, where you're getting tons of text from tons of users explaining their day to you, but a lot of valuable information can be in there, and it can be really, really useful to actually really understand your users. And then things like user studies, which, I mean, a user study could be where you're observing your user use your product, but it could also potentially be a survey that you send to your users, right? So a survey that you send to your users, most of the time, that's a very quantitative technique, where you just get a lot of numbers back and a lot of data, and this is great to show graphs and pie charts and so on in the end, and it's definitely a very useful resource as well. So you should normally use kind of a technique of qualitative and quantitative, a mix of qualitative and quantitative techniques in order to really figure out what your users need. Going back into a little bit of decision theory, right? So these are common decision techniques, right? You could delegate the decision, you could flip a coin in order to make a decision. You could put like the person in charge, like maybe the CEO, or in this case, the PM, because in our scenario, the PM is most of the time the person in charge of the decision, could just decide without any discussion. There could be a majority vote. So meaning you vote and the majority decides, right? They could, like, you could require a unanimous agreement where everybody has to agree, and or you have a discussion and then the person in charge of the decision takes the decision autocratically. Well, less autocratically than without the discussion. So another question for you here: what do you think, for what kinds of decisions or in what kinds of scenarios, which of these, in your opinion, would be the better technique to use for your decision? So basically from your previous experience, or also if you have some kind of an example to share that you thought was very extreme or a very good decision-making process, that would also be interesting to know, where somebody used one of these techniques and it was either a very good way of taking the decision or a very bad way of taking the decision. Water time for me. In class, we sometimes have a very similar awkward silence in the beginning, but I'm sure somebody will answer. I always wait until somebody answers. I'm forcing you. Oh, okay, Ines is giving me an example. I saw a disaster made by a person in charge without discussion. What was the disaster?
That's a lot. No one, like various, like the change of a software, you know, etc. When really the date or the schedule is not good because the taxes, deadline, etc. and a lot of consequences there. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a similar example where our CTO made a very autocratic decision in my previous company. And they basically decided to migrate a service that we were all using. So this was a service with, like, I mean, an internal service, right? That internally at the company we were using. So there were, like, we were a fairly small company, but probably 100 users of the service, like everybody, the whole tech team. That's a tool that the whole tech team uses. And he decided to migrate that to another option that they had, which required a lot of work by a lot of people. Like a lot of people had to, like, lost a lot of data, a lot of information. And this is, so I don't know if the tool Jira means anything to you. If you're working in the tech space, I guess you've heard of it and you've used it, but within software product management, that's kind of the tool that everybody uses to organize work, right? It's sort of the project management tool. And so yeah, he migrated it. I lost probably 2 hours of work because of the migration, plus a lot of data and a lot of information that I had to gather again, which took me another 2 weeks probably to get back. And not just for me, but for 30 other people as well. And in the end, so he took that decision without any discussion. And once we were all migrated, he again took the decision very autocratically to revert the change, to go back, and we lost all of the data again. So yeah, that was a pretty bad choice of decision-making technique, in my opinion.
Key users are important.
Sorry?
Key users are important.
Yes, exactly. Beatrice is saying, I think for some technical decisions I've done, the person in charge decides after discussion, and I find it fitting, but it also depends, of course. And Marianella is writing, for me, it depends on the situation. I would choose unanimous agreement. Yeah, definitely. I very much agree with you that it very much depends on the situation. And I want to give you 3 points at hand that I think might help you decide which technique to go for in the decision that you might have to take. So, commitment, meaning how committed do you need everybody else to be, right? Everybody else meaning the people that also need to potentially bring this decision to life. Or the people that need to be able to communicate this decision to the rest of the company, to your customers, to whatever. So how much commitment do you need? And how many people need to be committed to your decision? So the more commitment you need, of course, the more you should go towards some more democratic way of making the decision, right? Number 2, the quality of the decision, or to say it in other words, like in the words that we used before, the importance of the decision. Is this an important decision? Do we really have to think about this right now, or can we just take any decision, flip a coin, and go back if it wasn't the right decision? So of course, this one is important, and depending on how important that decision is, you can like either let somebody else take the decision, maybe somebody can just completely autocratically decide, or you can even flip a coin. That's a possibility. How much trust do you need to build with your decision? By the way, I guess the very first point that I maybe should have mentioned in the beginning is time, right? How much time do you have to take this decision? So time is everything. Time and resources are everything. You always want to reduce time, because in the end, you need to take that decision at some point, and sometimes you have a very limited time frame. So sometimes it's not possible to make sure that everybody agrees with the final decision. It's just not possible. Perfection is hard, as I said before. So you always want to optimize to time. Time should be reduced. But then the 3 points that you have to look into are how committed do people have to be, how important is your decision, and how much people trust you already, first of all, to take the right decision. If you're new at the company, or for some reason you're new to this context, or people just don't trust you for some reason, maybe because of the culture of the company, maybe people are just not very trusting in general. There could be reasons why people might not trust you very much yet. So you want to make sure that you facilitate the right decision-making process that will put trust in the decision, right? Again, trust and commitment is very correlated, but if you don't have a lot of trust yet, or if people don't have a lot of trust in your decision-making capabilities, maybe, as the person in charge, and you take you use a decision technique that is less towards the democratic and more towards the autocratic side, you won't receive a lot of commitment in the end, which might not always be a problem, but sometimes it will. But yeah, a unanimous agreement is very, very difficult, as I said before, especially if a lot of people are involved in the decision-making process. If a lot of people in the end need to be committed to the decision, you just won't reach a unanimous agreement. So I think in most scenarios, this is probably the right choice. You have a discussion, you make sure that everybody puts their opinion on the table so that everybody has received the chance to have the word, right? To say what they think about the different options. And you make sure that every one of those opinions are discussed. And even if in the end you still have people not agreeing with the final decision, you take the decision and you ask everybody to, even if they don't agree with this decision, to please commit to it because of this and that point, it seems to be the right decision at the moment according to your choice. A majority vote can be a good decision-making process as well in certain scenarios, but this is more if it's an opinion-based decision, right? So there are decisions that are based on data, and there are decisions that are more based on opinions, so that are a little bit more subjective. So for more subjective decisions, yeah, a vote is probably the best way to go, because then at least you know, okay, the majority has this opinion. But for things that are very data-based and very data-driven, and where opinions are a factor, but data is the biggest factor, this person in charge decides after discussion is probably the right way to go. Also, feel free if you have any questions. I mean, this class is not very long anymore, but also in the end, there will be a space for Q&A to just drop them in the chat. That's what I wanted to say. So in the end, to, in a way, sum everything up that I said so far, this quote by Marty Kagan fits quite well to summarize this. The job of the product manager is to discover a product that is valuable to the company, as in provides either provides revenue or reduces cost, right? Therefore valuable to the company, or usable and useful to the customer, not or, and usable and useful to the customer, and feasible, meaning doable by the tech team, so that the tech team can actually do this in the time and with the resources that we have right now. Not just the tech team, but also in other non-technical products, whichever team executes the final decision, right? And executes the final product idea. So yeah, that's the main job of the product manager, figuring this out, which is quite hard, as we said before. But that is not just according to Marty Kagan, the main job of the product manager. Within the product management realm, we kind of use this as our definition of our job. There are other definitions, like finding out what's valuable to the customer, which in the end thinks about the same thing, but this kind of talks about all three aspects: the company, the customer, and the team, the executive team that actually creates the solution. And you want to make sure, as the product manager, to create the right balance between these three things. And if you land right in the middle, so if you think of this as a Venn diagram, right? You have valuable, usable, and feasible. If you land right in the middle, that's the right solution. That's the solution that you want to go for. There are a couple of problems or traps that you might land in when you're making product decisions specifically. One of them is you might have insufficient or missing information, right? If this is an important decision that you're taking and you've decided, okay, yeah, that's important, a lot of information, you have to make sure that you have sufficient information. And this is quite difficult to decide, when do you have sufficient information. So there's this balance to play with between the amount of time that you need for taking your decision and the amount of information that you can gather within that time frame. Being blinded by your own biases, and I've mentioned this before when we were talking about putting yourself into your customer's shoes and like assuming this beginner's mindset. You are not a beginner, right? You have so much knowledge about this product, and so much knowledge that you don't even know you have, because it's just something that you've learned and you cannot unlearn it anymore. And it's biasing you towards a certain direction potentially. Also, you as the product manager, and also you as maybe the CEO of the company or the tech team or whoever you might be, you are not your customer. You can put yourself into your customer's shoes, and it's a very useful tool to use, but you're not your customer. You don't, in the end, know what your customer needs, and you need to, in the end, talk to them, figure out what they need. And you can use all of these tools that I mentioned before, but you have to make sure that you're not building the best product for yourself. And in the end, nobody wants to buy that, because it's just the best solution for yourself, but not for your customers, actually, right? Also, it's hard to ignore our own preferences. And this, again, you're not your customer, but everybody has a preference, and everybody looks at something, especially when something is visual, right? So we have this problem a lot in user interface designs, where everybody has an opinion and everybody has a preference and everybody has a favorite color or whatever. If you ignore evidence that doesn't support your preference, that's a very fatal flaw, right? You should never do that. So always follow the evidence and follow the data, and be aware that it's very easy to fall into this pitfall of just following your preference instead of looking at the data. You might even be looking at the data, but you might not be really thinking about it so much, so in detail, that you realize that you're actually right now following your preference instead of the evidence. And you might be really overconfident in your solution. As we said before, companies tend to overestimate the value that they're providing without realizing that customers don't see it that way, right? So make sure you're not too overconfident in your final decision, but make sure to, even once you've taken a decision, and the decision is probably based on a lot of data already, and you've probably taken the best decision you could take at that moment, but make sure that you're evaluating your decision after you've taken it still, and make sure that you see, okay, like that you gather data and you look into your customers. Are they using it the way that it is intended? Are they using it in a different way? Are they not using it? Are they really mad about it? Are they like, what do your customers think? How do your customers use your solution? And gather data even after you've taken your decision, and see whether it was the right decision, right? Because even though in very important decision, it's probably very hard to go back, the option to go back is always there, even if it was already, even if it's a decision that is very, very hard to undo. But yeah, the harder it is to go back, of course, as we said before, the better your decision-making process should have been anyways. So hopefully you won't have to go back anyways. There is a question, I think. But what if you are your own customer as well? For example, you are building a platform that you wish to use as well. Yeah, very good question, Helena. So, of course, it is possible that you are also your customer, but you're just one out of many, right? You're one out of very, 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 very many customers. And this is quite difficult. I mean, I always love to be the product manager of a solution that I'm using myself. So right now I'm working at Glovo, and of course I'm using Glovo myself. And it's a great product, right? That I love to use as well. We are right now, I think 40 product managers. So it's a pretty big team. I'm just in charge of like a tiny piece of the different products that we have. But so it's fun. It's fun for me to be my own customer, to be my own user. But you're not your only customer. You should not, in the end, follow your preference over the majority of your customers' preferences, right? You should not follow your preference over the data that you're gathering. And you should just make sure that even if you have a preference, make sure to also gather data. And even actually, I would suggest, because it's quite easy to fall into this trap of kind of ignoring data, because there's this confirmation bias, right? All the data that you gather that confirms your own opinion is data that you believe in. And I mean, it's just by nature. And all of the data that doesn't confirm your own beliefs, you're more hesitant towards, you're more doubtful towards. It's just the nature of human psychology. So I would even suggest to completely take yourself as the product manager out of the equation, and your own preference out of the equation, and just look at the data. And even if you are also a customer, and therefore you can put yourself quite well into your customer's shoes, better not use yourself as an example ever. Use personas that you've built with data. So like user examples, right, that have a face and a name and a description. Use them as examples, or use actual users that don't belong to the company as examples. Those are always the better examples than yourself as somebody who has so much knowledge and so much information about the product that you're building. Number 3, yeah, this is quite dangerous as a decision maker, right? It's quite difficult. So having your decision overridden by others, for example, the highest paid person's opinion, the hippo, which could be your manager, the CEO. I mean, a lot of people that are not used to this data-driven decision making and product mindset, where you're like putting yourself into your customer's shoes and not following your own opinion. A lot of people think their opinion is important and the decision should be taken according to their opinion, right? And in a lot of situations or in a lot of companies, you will have a CEO or a CTO that will just voice their opinion, and then everybody in the room is like, oh, okay, yeah, then let's do it like that. But that's never, I mean, of course, sometimes it can be the right decision to go for, but it's never the right way, the right decision process to just follow the highest paid person's opinion in the room. Because a lot of the time, so I mean, sometimes the CEO or whoever it was, the manager, actually wants their opinion to be followed, right? They have an opinion, so let's do it like that. But sometimes they're just voicing their opinion because they have an opinion, and then they're not even expecting anything to come out of this discussion or out of that opinion. But everybody else who is kind of in this room wants to follow and wants to be of a good image in front of that person or something, and just wants to override all of the data that they've gathered with their opinion. So you as the product manager, or as the person responsible for the decision, whatever decision it might be, or whatever your role is, if you're responsible for taking a decision and it's an important decision, don't fall into this trap. Don't follow the hippo or the hippo's opinion. but actually gather the data and make sure you're following what your customers actually need and what your customers actually need, not what they actually want, because they will always say what they want, but it's not actually what they need. And then you might have some stakeholders. This is a point that you might not be able to read on the slide. So this is a good point that for me to actually read out. All of the other things you could have probably read by yourself, and it wasn't that necessary for me to read them out. But because I think my image is in front of this one. Never mind, I'm rambling. So stakeholders, I mean, you might have some stakeholders in your company, or like people that are important for this decision-making process because they have an important opinion, right? Or they have important data on this, who will maybe just challenge your decision. That's okay, you can give them all of the data that you have, but there might be stakeholders who want to sabotage your decision. So this is something to look out for. And if you already know that there are these kinds of people, then make sure that they're on board, make sure they're in the same boat with you and they understand why you're taking this decision before they are able to sabotage it. And if it happens to you that somebody wants to sabotage your decision, just make sure your decision is based on data. You have the data to confirm why you've taken this decision, and everybody else in the company will be able to understand you. You just have to be transparent about it. Transparency is key. Transparency is always key to get people's commitment and trust in your decision-making process. And if somebody wants to sabotage you, just be calm about it. Make sure you have the right data that supports your decision, and explain to everybody and also to this person why you've taken this decision, and people will understand you and people will follow you and people will be angry at that person who wanted to sabotage your decision, and that person will probably apologize. I mean, that's the ideal situation, but normally it actually works out like that. All right, so the very last quote that I have for today, and also the very last slide that I have, is a quote from this very important looking person in this image, Theodore Roosevelt, who said, "In any moment of decision, the best thing you can do is the right thing, but the worst thing you can do is nothing," right? So take a decision, because at some point you have to take it, and the longer you drag it out, I mean, of course you have to gather your information and there's time required for it and so on, but the longer you drag it out, or the more perfectionist you want to be over your decision, so the more of the last 20% you're trying to gather of the information, maybe at some point a competitor will have overtaken you and will have just been faster with taking the decision, or it's too late and the need is not there anymore. The solution that you're offering is not useful anymore. There is definitely a point in time where it will be too late. So done. I mean, we also have this saying that done, released, is better than perfect, right? Because once you've released something, at least you can learn from it. Even if it wasn't the perfect solution, at least you'll be able to learn from it and you'll be able to do it better next time. So done is always better than perfect. But if you can't reverse it at all, or I mean, everything is also always reversible, but it might be very, very costly. Then just make sure that you gather these 80% of information, right? And make sure to go in small steps, maybe. So for example, if you want to change your logo, go in small steps. And first of all, just change the logo on your website. That's a very low investment. And don't change the logo on all of the physical space as well, and see what people think about it. Or just change the logo for 1% of your users if you have a very big target audience. See what they think about it, and just go step by step, take very small steps if you have one of those very important decisions to take. Because at some point, you just have to take that decision, otherwise it will be too late. All right. Now I'm opening up the floor for any other questions that you might have, or for any comment maybe that you want to give.
Thank you, Anita. It was very interesting.
And if there are no questions, of course, then I'm giving you back 20 minutes of your free time.
So, no question. Marta is saying no questions.
Oh, I'm glad that you found it useful, Marta. Cool. Yeah, you're very welcome. Yeah, our classes at allWomen are normally 3 hours long. It was hard for me to reduce information into this space, but now we actually have a little bit of time left, so all good. Okay.
It was very clear, Anita.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
Anita, can you hear me?
I'm glad that it was insightful for you, Isabella. I'm glad. Oh, there's a question. Okay. How can you overcome unconscious bias, the ones that you don't know you have? Yeah. So, in my opinion, the first thing to overcome unconscious bias, so I mean, every bias that you have is in a way unconscious, right? Even if you know about this bias, there will still be something inside you that is your unconsciousness that just puts you in that direction, and in the end puts your opinion and your decision in that direction, right? But the very first step is, as you actually kind of said, learn about the biases, learn a little bit about psychology, and learn about the biases that you have, that people have, and therefore the more understanding you have and the more information and knowledge you have about biases, the better and the less biased decisions you will take, hopefully. That's the theory. The second one is, as I said, data, right? Gather as much data as you can. Gather data from your customers, gather data about the usage of the thing, of your product. Gather data from competitors. Maybe they've even published some information around this topic, or you can kind of see from them how they did it, how they solved it, and therefore you already know, oh, this is working for them. Maybe this could work for us as well. So data is another, or the second very, very good way of overcoming bias, and especially overcoming unconscious bias. The problem with data is always that, of course, data can be biased as well. The way that you've asked your question, or the way, like the information that you're looking at, everything can be biased in the end. And in the end, I mean, in my opinion, everything is biased in the end. We are people, we are humans, we are not objective computers. And even computers, in my opinion, can be biased because they've also been programmed by people. Software has been programmed by people. It's impossible to completely remove bias from anything, in my opinion. But the more you know about bias and the more you know about your customers, the less bias, at least, you will have. So I think you can only reduce bias, you cannot completely remove it. There's another question from Marianela. There are many products that we don't need, but are cute or look nice and are very cheap, and sometimes we tend to buy them. In this case, how product manager empathizes with a customer in the way they will buy something they don't actually need, or they didn't empathize with the customer. I very much agree with. I buy so many things that I don't need, but that I want, right? But they are, I mean, I do think, so this is what you say, you don't need it, but you want it. But in a way, there's some need inside you that this fulfills, right? And probably that need in this case might be the self-actualization in a way, or the fulfillment, or somehow the self-expression. You're buying this because it kind of goes with your personality. So I'm buying jewelry that I don't need. I mean, who needs jewelry, right? But there's a certain need inside of me still that makes me want to express myself, or makes me want, like, I want to look nice, or I want to look good, and that is also a certain need, and it's probably at the very top of the pyramid. So it's the highest kind of need that you have. These like fun or cheap or cute things that do not fulfill any of the basic needs at all, but it does fulfill some of the needs at the very top that you don't need to fulfill to survive at all. You don't even need to fulfill to live a happy life, but there's still needs that you have, and because you can purchase them, you can also fulfill those needs because you've already fulfilled all of the needs below, most of the time. Guilty pleasures, yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're very welcome for this answer and for the presentation in general. So yeah, very happy to have had you as my students today in a way, and thank you very much for your inputs also with the questions that I've had. And I think that's it for today. I don't know, Ines, if you want to say anything
Can
else,
you hear me?
or if we can close the session.
Could you hear me? No.
Oh, Ines is frozen, at least for me.
Ah.
And frozen in a almost falling asleep position. So I guess that's it.
No.
Hey, no, Ines, I can't hear you. Or maybe it's just me. I don't know, but I can't hear you. Oh.
Ah, okay. Okay.
Oh,
perfect.
okay, then I'll stop talking. If
no
problem.
Can
hear her. Sorry.
So thank you for being here, Anita, but she's not hearing me. Thank you for all of you to be here today, and we will send you a mail tomorrow, and also you have the recording if you want to review something. You know us, we create a lot of talk and masterclass, data science masterclass, data analytics, UX, product. There is a Figma masterclass. We will have SEO. So, I don't know. Well, okay. Stay here smiling. So let's. If you follow us in Growthcast, LinkedIn, etc., you will see all the talks and masterclass there. Yeah. Hope you can hear this, and thank you. I don't know if you can hear me now.
Yeah. No. Yes.
No. Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Let's see what happened. But thank you very much for being here today. Bye bye.
Bye bye.